What's going on, everybody? All right, I want to talk to you about this whole idea that Superman can't get to $700 million globally. Everybody's freaking out about this whole thing that internationally it's done relatively not poorly, but not as good as what people were hoping in its first weekend. It's done phenomenally domestically, but when it comes to the box office internationally, it hasn't been what everybody was hoping. You know, it just missed the $100 million mark in its opening weekend, and people are a little upset about that. But here's the thing. You don't have to worry about it. Like, this isn't something that needs to be a big concern at this point in time. Now, if you head over to slavsfreetalk.com, I kind of broke down some things for everybody here, okay? So yes, if you've heard the reports, the first weekend for Superman, it opened with 125 million domestically and about 95 million internationally. That's a rough take there, which is a total of 220 million worldwide. Now, you figure this movie's going to be open for roughly 90 days, theatrically, exclusively, most likely. So, what is the pathway for it to get to that? What everybody thinks is where it's going to hit is like that 650, 700 million, because not everyone, but there's a group of people, a lot of group of people sitting there saying like, oh man, this movie's not even going to make 500, it's not even going to hit 600, it's not going to do this. What is this path that it has to do to get to that? Well, first off, the engagement has been phenomenal for this film. All right, you're sitting at a 83% right now with Rotten Tomatoes, 93 with Rotten Tomatoes for the fans, A- for the cinema score. That is all phenomenal. That is great. Word of mouth that is going to be coming out of this first weekend. People are loving this movie. It's going to do gangbusters just simply because of that. So the second week, I can see that the drop isn't going to be that massive. It doesn't have any real competition in week 2, so this second week is probably going to be a pretty strong week for it. So what would potentially be the outcome for this movie with a strong second week, and then you take a look at the remaining 2 months or so? Well, with a strong second week, you're figuring it's probably going to get another say 60 million roughly in the second week. I think realistically, when it comes to domestically, I think we're really looking, and this is playing on the conservative end. This is like, let's not go crazy with the numbers here. I really think that it could just hit that like 360 to 390. All right. That would be phenomenal to do. But again, internationally, how's that going to, because 390, that's not 500, that's not 600, that's not 700. So we're saying that you got to do another 350, another 400 to even get to that. Well, can it do that internationally? I think that it can get close to that. I do. Now, when it comes to international box office, that first week is always really finicky. It really is. And here's the crazy thing about it is, when it comes to first week, there is usually a massive jump thereafter. Take Aquaman, for instance. Its first weekend made $93.6 million, but it finished at $298.3 million. That was more than 3 times what it made. Wonder Woman in 2017 made 122, finished with 410. Black Panther was 169 its first weekend internationally, finished with 646. The Joker in 2019 started with 152, finished with 743. Then there's a plethora of other types of films that you could even look at that aren't in that range, in comic book range. You got things like Disney's Zootopia, you have Pixar's Coco, Bohemian Rhapsody, things that started small but blew up over time and really got a big boost before its theatrical run ended internationally. So when I sit here and think about this kind of stuff, I think, like, you know what? I think that a $300 to $320 million range is not all that impossible internationally. So when the studio sits there, whether it's Warner Brothers Discovery or DC Studios sit there and they talk highly and how they're excited and happy about what they've gotten and what they've seen and they have here with this movie, it's because they're looking at similar information. They see this type of stuff. They see and understand the type of stuff that we see here. And, well, that's what's really good for this movie. Because, honestly, let's think logically here, okay? Fantastic Four comes out in a couple weeks. That's going to pull from it, absolutely. We all know it's going to pull from it. But no one expected this movie to hit $1 billion. Nobody. $1 billion was never the expectation. The studio didn't think that, and anybody who's anybody, audience-wise, didn't expect it to do that. Was there a hope that it could? Sure. But the expectation was never that. Now, some of the more excited fans, like myself, sure, we were looking at, hey, I think it could hit 700. But even the studio had lower expectations because they knew. We talked about it ad nauseum on this channel here for months and months and months, that the expectation for this movie is just to get people excited and ready and raring for a new DCU. So that's what this is all about. That's what this movie is about. It's not about making billions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars immediately. It's about establishing the DCU and getting people excited for what's to come. And when you take a look at the fan scores on Rotten Tomatoes, the Metacritic, and all of the talk on social media, on the TikToks, on the X's, on the Facebooks, people are excited about this movie. It's not a perfect movie, but people are still excited about it. They're having fun with it. And you can't ask for more than that. Not right now. Not when it had such an uphill battle to get to this point. From the damaged DC brand because of the DCEU, to the fact that people just don't go to the theaters like they used to the fact that there is, whether people want to admit it or not, there is some fatigue when it comes to comic book movies. I've talked about that quite a bit. The comic book movie genre as a whole, the medium when it comes to box office is under $500 million. So it has an uphill battle, but it's hitting every bar it needs to. And that is a great sign for the DCU, for James Gunn, for Superman, for everything moving forward. But I'd love to hear what you have to say, so let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Hit that like button, hit subscribe, and I'll check you all out later.